Chip carving is an art all about precision. We usually want very precise geometric shapes, precise intersections, and you can see this is kind of an example of that, where very tight corners, precise intersections, alignment, all these things, everything is very geometrical and kind of exact angles and meeting up and everything. That's a pretty standard, typical way we would do chip carving. But there's another slight difference that I like to employ sometimes, depending on the pattern. And I've got these two versions of the same general pattern that I've recently carved. And this version is using that very precise standard, put the knife in here, carve, stop, rotate, put the knife back in, carve. And that produces a nice crisp point here, crisp edges here, which is what we're typically looking for. But this other version down here is slightly different, and I'm hoping that the camera can pick it up here, that it's a little bit softer and kind of feels a little bit more cohesive to me, is kind of one way I'd put it. And the difference there is the corners here have a little bit of a radius on them, a little bit more rounded, and same here and here. Instead of being very stark corners, they're a little bit softened together. And I don't know that that's something that you necessarily notice if you just picked up one of the pieces that I do this with. It's pretty subtle, but I think it does have an effect on how the piece is received. And let me do another example here. Kind of this flowing line would be one similar example where I might use this style. So for the normal one, you put the knife in, start there, kind of come around, finish, pull the knife out, and then do the same thing on this side. Nice sharp points. And then to do this other version where it's a little bit softer, bit of a rounded corners instead, is kind of borrowing from making circles where you are curving to pull the knife out a bit and curve it around. So here I'm actually going to start, instead of here, I'm going to start at kind of a 90-degree angle, about perpendicular to where I would normally start. Just barely drop the knife in, not really pushing too hard, and then swivel it around and come in to make the cut that I would normally make. And as I come to the bottom here, I'm not going to draw the knife out completely, almost, but just kind of leave it in the wood, so I'm cutting through a little bit of those fibers. And then once I get it flipped around 180, then I can come back, finish, and I already did the roundedness on that side, so I can just finish it up like that. And so hopefully, let me get the eraser out, might make things a little bit clearer here. So hopefully you can see now that this is very pointed, very sharp, and this one is just a little bit softer, a little bit rounded, has maybe a little bit more of a natural sort of feel to it. This is another project that I did that uses that kind of idea, where on the outside here I want these to be nice and pointy, the tips of the leaves, but then on the inside here, just a little bit of an edge, a little bit of a radius there. I could come and make it pointy, but just that slight curvature. Same here, perhaps even more slight there. I could just come, start there, and start there, and it'd be nice and sharp and crisp, and it would look good, but that wasn't really the look I was going for this natural leaf sort of aspect. So I usually do the crisp standard geometry and pointy corners and all that. There's just kind of a few, often these more natural, naturey sort of aesthetics that I often will employ this softening of the corners. And it's just one more detail. Same with the way I sand the corners of the pieces so that they kind of look crisp and sharp, but when you feel it, it doesn't feel aggressive or pointy in your hands. I like to make sure all the details of the carving, both visually and tactily, are considered and provide the effect and the experience that I'm looking for. So if you want to consider that, if you do some natural carving, anything that's not just strict geometric lines and shapes, that might be something to be consider, adding a little bit of a soft radius to some of those corners.